A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to say.
You got f***ing grow up, mother. Are you kidding me?
Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Hello and welcome aboard another episode of the Gallant Says podcast, available live on twitch.tv/Gallant Says and youtube.com/Paul Gallant. Weekdays 1 to 1:30 Central Time, but also available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. You can listen to the podcast, of course, but if you want to talk to the show on the fly and see my face have zero poker face, you got to come here. First commenter of the day from twitch.tv/Gallant Says. It's Tree713, Sup World. I'm hoping to see the hotties at Bottled Blonde at the end of the week. They are coming back from Scottsdale. A thought on Bottled Blonde. First off, the place is overrated. I got kicked out of there once, legitimately just standing and minding my own business because a bouncer bumped into me, and I made a snide comment saying, like, you gonna say excuse me? And he escalated immediately, had me escorted out. I also want to say, too, like, some of the people that work at Bottled Blonde, we get it. You're attractive. Stop acting like you're beneath getting me my fucking drink. That's just me. Some of these bartenders have gotten especially snooty. We get it. You're hot. Get me my drink. Thank you. Service industry. Anyway, what are we going to talk about on today's show? We got Super Bowl 57, which we will touch on in just a moment. The Philadelphia Eagles and Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City came back from down 24-14, ultimately go on to win it 38-35. Bit of a controversial ending. I think, though, deep down inside, if you're an Eagles fan, you can blame the game on that holding call of James Bradbury on Juju Smith-Schuster and say that was why the Chiefs won. No, the only thing that prevented was Jalen Hurts having a chance, a true chance, to march Philadelphia down the field and potentially deliver what would have been game-winning score if they had gotten into touchdown range or potentially a field goal. Problem was, there wasn't enough time left, and you saw a really ugly Hail Mary to end the game, which is a bummer because the last thing you see from Jalen Hurts in that game was a really bad throw, and otherwise he was really good. He stepped on Jason Kelce on that throw. But I think Eagles fans deep down, like the Eagles defensive line got just dominated by the Chiefs offensive line. Dominated. And 0 sacks from a Philly defensive line that I even was hyping up. And factor in Philadelphia's linebackers looking really slow. Factor in Nick Sirianni getting, it seemed like cold feet after being so aggressive in the first half. There's a 4th and 3, a 4th and 6 that he potentially could have gone for. He chose to give the ball back to a Kansas City team that was cooking offensively. There was that bad punt, too, that set Kansas City up for the last game-winning score. I think Philadelphia deep down knows that Kansas City just beat them. That call just happens to take place towards the end of the game, and of course everyone's going to lose their mind on it. We'll get into some of the good and the bad of Super Bowl 57 in just a moment. Friday on the podcast, we touched on how the Houston Texans had seemingly brought Kliff Kingsbury back from his one-way visit to Thailand to interview him for the offensive coordinator gig, which was intriguing, right? I mean, if you really think about it, he's got a damn good track record as a coordinator, but as a head coach, it's been a bit disastrous, both with Texas Tech and with the Cardinals. I think at Tech, he's at Tech. How much was he supposed to win there? Offensively as well, when you have an offense that, is throwing the ball as much as as much as the Red Raiders were, you're going to perhaps exhaust your defense over the course of the game. And then maybe in the second half of the season too, your team's going to be tired from all the extra snaps they're playing. It does always feel like those Kliff Kingsbury led teams would fall apart in the second half. But the idea of him as a coordinator is an intriguing one. It's definitely something he hasn't done in a while, but when he did it, he was damn good, both at University of Houston and at Texas A&M. But we don't even have to worry about Kliff Kingsbury now as a potential offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans because they did finalize their coaching staff over the weekend. They hired 49ers passing game coordinator Ben Slowick to be their offensive coordinator. Slowick is 35 years old and for the last 6 years has been on the same coaching staff as DeMeco Ryans, no previous play calling experience. They also announced the hiring of former Texas A&M quarterback Jerrod Johnson to be their quarterback coach, which is, I think, very exciting. I like Jerrod Johnson a lot personally. And also, I think as far as teaching goes, this is a guy who helped me shave basically 0.2 seconds off of my 40-yard dash time at a radio combine that we did. I mean, if he can do that with me, imagine what he can actually do with NFL players. It was 5 minutes of just changing my stance up. So it's a small thing. It's a little bit different than coaching an actual quarterback. But he's been on the rise of late, and I'm really happy for him. He's a good dude. They're also trying to hire Kliff Kingsbury, who was with Denver this past season, was in Minnesota not too long ago as their run game coordinator. That is a guy who has worked, I believe, with Jerrod Johnson before. I could be wrong on that. I don't know if Jerrod Johnson was in Minnesota the last 2 years or just this past year, but whatever the case. The coaching staff seems to have been finalized. Matt Burke, their defensive coordinator, that was a move that was announced on Friday. And Frank Ross, who was their special teams coordinator last year, who is, I think, very good at his job, he is sticking around. So, rather young coaching staff. The average age of Ryans and his three coordinators, Ryans is 38. Matt Burke is 46. Slowick and Ross are both 35. Frank Ross, by the way, is hilarious. I love him. Is only slightly older, 38 and a half, than the average age of 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan's initial collection of coordinators in 2017, 36. It does feel like the Houston Texans, in some way, shape, or form, are trying to replicate what San Francisco did back in the mid-2010s after they had to rebuild on the fly in a post Jim Harbaugh, post Chip Kelly, if I'm not mistaken, world. I got to look up the history really quick. 49ers head coach history, because there was a couple of years where you're like, whoa, look at them. They're finally back to being what they were in the 1990s. But, yeah, Harbaugh goes from 2011 to 2014. Jim Tom Sula was the interim head coach in 2015, it says. Chip Kelly came in for 1 year. They go 2-14, and then Kyle Shanahan takes over. So, yeah, lots of messiness with the coaching situation there. You have three coaches over a period of 3 years, 4 technically if you want to go a little bit further. And there are some similarities with the Houston Texans, obviously, what they have been going through of late. Back when Kyle Shanahan, who of course used to be on the Houston Texans coaching staff a while ago, took over, former Texans staffer Mike McDaniel, their run game coordinator, and defensive coordinator Robert Saleh were part of the offense. And McDaniel, who had never called plays when he joined Shanahan's staff at age 33, and Saleh and Richard Hightower, their special teams coordinator, were all young. None of them had ever been coordinators. It worked out pretty well for them. So I'm not saying that is a reason to expect success out of the Texans in the near future. But I think they're trying to copy San Francisco. And it's funny that there are certain teams that we do not like to see the Houston Texans try to copy. I would specifically point to the New England Patriots. Are we going to call this what it is? It is, in a way, trying to replicate the San Francisco 49ers. You're going young with your coordinators. It might work out, but it's really going to depend on what you end up doing in the draft. John Lynch, to his credit, as the 49ers general manager, did a pretty damn good job with the first couple of drafts for San Francisco. And that put the 49ers in a spot where ultimately, not too long after Shanahan took over, they're in a Super Bowl. Of course, they don't win it, but considering what Shanahan's done over the last couple of years, even with a coaching staff that continuously gets rated, they built a pretty impressive program over these years. I don't really know what more to expect out of Slowick other than, okay, well, probably some similarities to the Shanahan offense. Is he going to be able to evolve it, to take it further than Shanahan has? Does he have that potential? I think we have to be realistic with ourselves, and point at this Texans coaching staff. Of all the guys that are on it, Matt Burke has had a previous experience as a defensive coordinator, but of all these guys on it, the only guy that's really proven anything has been Frank Ross as the special teams coordinator here. You really don't know, and I think you have to expect that while DeMeco Ryans will probably end up being here for 3-4 years or something like that, at least one of these coordinators will be gone sooner rather than later, and it could be Ben Slowick. We honestly don't know. I wish I had more of a take on Ben Slowick than that, but that's the Houston Texans coaching staff. Ben Slowick's the offensive coordinator, Gerard Johnson the quarterback coach, and Matt Burke the defensive coordinator. Let's see some comments here. Twitch.tv/ESPN975. It's Chewy713 says, I said this in the chats earlier on your show. I hate the Kansas City radio announcer dude because he is annoying as hell. Yeah, that final call was annoying. Touchdown, Kansas City. It's Chewy continues on Twitch.tv/Gallant says, saying, I still think Kansas City slowing down the run didn't happen either. The offense should have kept running the freaking ball. I'm guessing talking about Philadelphia from that perspective. I got to say, Kansas City running the football was surprising. Isaiah Pacheco had a really good game, and I think for a lot of people playing fantasy football was probably a nice little surprise addition if you didn't have any running backs to make in the middle of the year. I had him in both of my leagues, and thank God I did, because all my running backs did not do so well this year and or got hurt. As far as the actual Super Bowl itself, the good and the bad. I want to start off by saying I don't understand why people watch the Super Bowl for commercials. I don't. Not anymore. The commercials aren't good. They haven't been good in a couple of years. Some of them take themselves too seriously. Those are generally the car commercials. Others are trying a little bit too hard, and you can tell that they just had a big budget to spend, so they hired some famous person to join in. But they're never that funny, because we're talking like PG-13 at best level humor. And there were some good ones that were memorable. I really liked the local HEB ads with the song, How Can I Live Without You? I Want to Know. Or is it How Can I Breathe? How can I breathe without you? And then they're showing like buttery flour tortillas from HEB and the green salsa from HEB. Yeah, I like that. I think for anyone who has been to HEB as a grocery store in Texas and gone anywhere else, whether it's in Seattle where the grocery stores are just understocked, or in the Northeast where they're all kind of ugly and schleppy on the inside, you go to HEB, it's like a whole other fucking world. It's amazing. And I think that was a good commercial, but that wasn't nationally seen. I like the dog food commercial showing the dog growing up from a puppy to an adult as this woman becomes an adult and has a kid and everything. That was a cute commercial. But for the most part, they were nondescript, and I don't remember many of them. I remember the U2 one, but it was mainly because I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is kind of current with the UFOs that are out here. And also, I feel like now all of a sudden I'm probably going to look at my phone, and on Apple Music, I'm going to have a U2 album that's been downloaded without my consent to my phone. Fuck that. I don't want it. And I like U2 from back in the day. I just don't really like recent U2. The best parts of the Super Bowl. By the way, I also didn't watch the halftime show. Does that make me an old man, a fuddy-duddy, a boomer? I'm not into the halftime show that much. I'm just not. And I made this joke on the radio. I think I said, oh, wow, classic Rihanna, can't even think about the halftime show in advance. Has to get pregnant before. And of course I was joking along the way, but I didn't watch it. I heard it. It sounded good. I guess she was doing it while pregnant, so that's pretty cool. I didn't have a strong take on it, but I just don't really care about the halftime shows. I just want to watch the football. I used the halftime show to like peel painter's tape off of the corners of my porch because I just painted the porch ceiling that I have. The best parts about the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was fucking awesome in this game. And I said it a little bit earlier. I really do hope that he gets remembered for the game that he had, but we'll probably forget it in a couple of years. At the very least, let's all agree that you got to stop doubting him. He took tremendous steps forward as a passer the last couple of seasons, making quick decisions. And yeah, he's got a lot to work with on that Philly offense. But man, I mean, some of those throws he was making downfield to A.J. Brown, to Devontae Smith. Hell, there was one throw that I think was ruled an incomplete pass. It was a beautiful throw down the middle of the field. There was another to the sideline. Dallas Goedert had a couple of great catches in this game. Hurts played out of his mind. I would say second only to Jalen Hurts, and Hurts would have maybe had a chance to win the MVP, even as a loser, had he not fumbled unprecedented that one ball that got returned for a touchdown. The Chiefs' offensive line was second to Hurts in this game. It got called historic by Orlando Brown. Yeah, that Eagles pass rush is really good, and they held them sackless. Patrick Mahomes' toughness also up there. Patrick Mahomes is still playing on a high ankle sprain, and he didn't look affected for most of the game, but there was one moment where he got hit, and you saw him limping around afterwards. I don't know what they gave him on the sideline or what they gave him at halftime, but that guy's a tough motherfucker. And he's also likable too. After the game, he went out of his way to say Jalen Hurts played outstanding. He's really likable, man. In a way that I never found Peyton Manning likable. I like Patrick Mahomes. And yeah, there's a chance he could overtake my Lord and Savior, Tom Brady, I suppose. I mean, he's still got a ways to go. You still got to get 5 more Super Bowl wins just to tie him, let alone the 10 Super Bowl appearances. A couple of comments, twitch.tv/Gallant says. This is from Bearded G1N. Vince McMahon should run the NFL at this point. And I'm guessing this has to do with the call towards the end of the game that led to an anticlimactic finish. Look, I can't get mad about that call because the refs made the right call. James Bradbury, the defensive back who got called for holding, said, yeah, that was a hold. Juju Smith-Schuster said it was a hold. Nick Sirianni said it wasn't the reason that they lost. There were a lot of reasons that Philadelphia lost that had nothing to do with that play. So I can't say that this is some sort of NFL rigged situation. You know, someone said that the NFL wants Patrick Mahomes to succeed. Do they? There's a ton of awesome quarterbacks in the league. Shit, the AFC has all around the same age, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes. Now the NFC has Jalen Hurts. The NFL has plenty of quarterbacks. They don't need it to be one quarterback winning every single year. Sure, maybe a team that continuously gets there year in, year out, draws more eyeballs. But I think that we're overthinking it if we think that that game was actually rigged. Bearded G1 says, was Pat really injured? Yeah, I think he was. And what goes a little bit further, going back to the call, there was one defensive hold all game. Look, I didn't even think Juju Smith-Schuster really got impeded. I just hate that we have made it so difficult for defenders in the league. Speaking of difficult, Eagles linebackers, Jesus, as part of the bad of Super Bowl 57, they looked awful. They had no ability to cover. They were slow to the sidelines. They weren't doing a very good job when it comes to the Chiefs running game. Isaiah Pacheco had a really good game. Travis Kelce, oh my God, that guy's so insufferable. And look, I get it. Chiefs fans like him, but nobody believes in this bullshit that he's been pushing. We got to stop with this bulletin board material epidemic across the NFL. Everyone thinks that no one believes in them. What, is our entire country full of nihilists? Are NFL fans not believing in their team? Do Chiefs fans think that the Chiefs suck or something? Plenty of people thought the Chiefs had a chance at winning a Super Bowl this year. I would not count myself among them, but it's a team that's quarterbacked by Patrick Mahomes. Even if you're skeptical he'd be able to be as productive as he was without Tyreek Hill, which was totally valid, it's still the best quarterback in the game. They were going to be fine. But Kelce kept on pushing afterwards. Nobody believes in us. Nobody believes in us. What are you fucking talking about, dude? And then he does this, you got to fight for your right to party, bro, at the end. Oh, my God. Spare me. Ugh. He had some other joke, too, about, how he was crying. I think he said something about, oh, we're about to go to where burgers and Cries Fries or something like that. French Cries. I don't know. It was another really corny dad joke. And he's trying so hard to be cool. Other bad parts about the Super Bowl. When Nick Sirianni stopped being aggressive. There was a 4th and 3 and a 4th and 6 in this game. And Sirianni has historically been so aggressive. You would have thought that in that spot, he would have gone for it there, and he didn't. I thought that was a missed opportunity by Sirianni. The actual field itself, that was one of the bad parts of Super Bowl 57. Jordan Mailata called it like playing on a water park. I think Frank Clark called the field trash. Guys were slipping all over the place. There's this idea that if every single NFL field has some sort of grass, that it'll be better for the players. I don't know about that, because you have to remember that, yes, grass is grass, but grass can vary state to state, location to location, groundskeeping crew to groundskeeping crew. It is a lot easier said than done to maintain a good field, and that field sucked last night. There were people slipping all over the place. As far as other people to dump on for this Super Bowl, how about LeBron crowning himself on the Jumbotron? Good job by Philadelphia Eagles fans booing him. Terry Bradshaw may have fat-shamed Andy Reid when he said, like, hey, waddle over here to get the trophy. The trophy presentation sucked. Terry Bradshaw is not like a very skilled, as far as smoothness, broadcaster. Jim Nantz would have excelled in that situation. Terry Bradshaw kind of floundering around asking questions. That didn't sound very good. It didn't. As far as... I'm trying to think of other things from this Super Bowl as far as the bad. I think we got just about everything. So that's going to wrap up our Super Bowl 57 talk. I want to touch on something else. What the fuck's going on? What is happening? What is going on? No, seriously, guys. Like, we got UFOs all over the place this weekend. This is from the Daily Mail, a headline up on the Daily Mail. Let me update really quickly the computer window. Daily Mail. We're calling them objects, not balloons, for a reason. Pentagon refuses to rule out that the objects flying over the U.S. are aliens or extraterrestrials after a third UFO is shot down after flying near sensitive military sites. And, of course, we had the Chinese spy balloon not too long ago as well. A third unknown aerial object was shot down over the Great Lakes on Sunday. Authorities are not ruling out that the three most recent objects could be aliens. They are not calling them balloons because they are still not sure what they are. You know, it's one thing when the government says, hey, this is what this is. And we have to ourselves, determine whether or not we believe them. But when they don't even give you anything to be sure about, that's where I start to get a little bit nervous. I mean, this could be bad. No, I mean, this is annoying, man. I want them to be transparent with us, but in this situation, they probably shouldn't. So what are the details that they are going to give us? So there's this event over Lake Huron on Sunday. There was another event that took place in Montana. And then there was another that was destroyed over Alaska and Canada. So I guess the Montana one, I don't know what I'm talking about there. But there was one shot over Alaska and over Canada. Is Lake Huron near Montana? Honestly, I don't fucking know. Sorry, my geography without a map in front of me isn't good. So they sent out F-22s. They were of a similar size and speed. NORAD has never downed an aircraft over Canadian territory. The aircraft, before it was shot down, would alternate from moving around 20 to 40 miles per hour in the direction of the North Pole and then would just appear to stop at times and float in place. I'm a little concerned. Unless this is Bono, who's putting these things up there in the sky to help him out with the sphere object that was in the midst of the Super Bowl commercial that he had for, I guess, a new album. I'm trying to figure out what the fuck this might be, and I'm a little alarmed that the government doesn't seem to know what's happening. Here is a reporter who asked a person with NORAD if these were aliens or extraterrestrials. And here is, I don't know what this lady's name is, but if you're watching twitch.tv/GallantSays or youtube.com/Paul Gallant, you can see her.
I wanted to ask this, maybe a silly question, but I think it's on, didn't think I'd ever ask this question. Is there any indication that this object is not terrestrial, is not from this world? Or is it too early to say anything on that front?
You're right. I have not had that question, Lee. So thank you for asking it. From all indications, this object is potentially similar to the one that was shot down off the coast of North Carolina, though smaller in size and cylindrical in nature. That is the information that we are working with right now, but with further analysis, we will know more and be able to provide you with more details.
So just to confirm,
Good
so
job,
it sounds
follow-up.
like it potentially was another balloon. Is that what we're being led to believe here?
I will refer to the item as an object at this time. I am a person that depends on facts and will not provide opinions until I can ground them in some sort of fact. So I'm going to wait for the reports that I will be getting relating to the analysis of the debris. We have a CP-140 in the air, ensuring that we are locating the debris. We have a very close relationship now with public safety, and Minister Mendocino as well and I are working very closely to make sure that the recovery and the analysis proceeds as it must so that we can get more information. And I will come back and provide more details and more explanation once we have that.
Thank you. We'll take the next question.
Does anyone feel good? Does anyone feel good right now? That's all I'm asking. Do you feel good? I almost wish they lied to me. I would rather be lied to than hear that. Like, oh, we don't know. I don't know. Why not say, like, we can't reveal that information? We don't know. Fuck. Because that's exactly what I would expect if there was an alien invasion. Oh, we don't know. Yeah, we don't know what's going on. 3 at once? What the fuck is this? Signs? Zach the Texan comments, twitch.tv/Gallant says, very sus. Yeah. I would like to, at the very least, believe that the money I am paying in taxes is actually going towards having a realistic chance of defending me, you, everybody else. Personally, I don't want to be a slave to the aliens. I don't want to be abducted and have sexual experimentations done upon me unless they're pleasurable. Like, I don't want that, So I'll do some more reading on this. I saw this happening. Like, I was so focused on the Super Bowl this weekend. Sometimes I bury my head in the sand. Fuck. Like, this is a little alarming. Just a little bit. I'm not saying panic or anything like that, but it's one thing to have the Chinese weather balloon. I don't give a fuck about that. I feel like with all the nukes that we got in the world, I do think that we're in a nice little place where the U.S. and Russia and China will consistently step down from the brink because there's really no point in fighting a nuclear war when everyone's going to get wiped out. But what happens if there's aliens? Are they going to be dicks? Like, we don't know. They probably will be, let's be honest. And also, I mean, we've been doing this thing where we've been sending out signals to potentially make contact with other civilizations. Why the fuck would we do that? Like, forget about the fact that they might come here and kill us all on purpose. What if they come here and they've got diseases from another planet and then there's another fucking pandemic? We just got out of one. Can we stop? Can we at least give it 5 years before we start sending the signal out? God. I'm a little concerned, guys. I am a little bit concerned. That's going to wrap up today's edition of the Gallant Says podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Tomorrow, we will do a Worst of Twitter Tuesday and dive into other things. In case you tuned in for some Texans conversation, get this in podcast form or watch the entire video in its entirety. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant, Twitch.tv/Gallant Says. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or SoundCloud. Please do leave a review. Tell a friend. Every little bit of support happens. Until tomorrow, 1 o'clock Central Time. So long, farewell, and have yourselves a wonderful month.